Hello and welcome to this episode of Behavior Change. My name is Zanel Nguriathi. I'm a counseling psychologist and wellness coach at Nafsi Wellness. And today we're going to be talking about stress. Now, I bet you've heard that word so many times. I don't want to say common vocabulary because I bet there are people who haven't heard of it before, but ways in which it's used, it can say, when someone asks how your day is, and they say, that was stressful. Or how was work? That was stressful. You know? So I want us to really define what stress is and find out if stress is good or bad for you. Okay? So what is stress? In my opinion, stress is your own body's way of communicating its needs. It brings those needs to your attention, to your focus. Now, as a human being, there are so many things that can distract you on a daily basis. Those are the things that require your attention. But your internal needs, such as like your need for food, your need for sleep, your need for rest, your need to communicate, those are all things that the body communicates. And stress is a form of communication, except there is no usage of sound or words, because the body is an organ that operates all at once through the brain, okay? All right, so let's talk about the fact that stress is good for you. Now, I've just discussed that stress is your body's way of communicating your needs to you. And already, I can imagine that some people are saying, oh, I don't know if stress is something that might be good for me, but wait just yet. Stress is good for you because it's a form of communication, as I've said. So take, for example, when you're hungry or when your body needs nutrients, there are several signs that your body is communicating to you to feed it. The first would be a grumbling stomach. The second would be an attentiveness to smells that could trigger a growling stomach, right? Could be yawns. When you yawn, you're either indicating your need for rest or your need for food. Or when you're thirsty, your body communicates the need for water by having a dry mouth or dry lips, right? And when your body is overheating, sometimes it will communicate to you that you need to rest or you need to hydrate by giving you a dizzy spell or making you feel lightheaded. So when we talk about stress, you can say it's a response to external factors that bring several matters to your attention, okay? Because when you're stressed, there's always something at the forefront of your mind. There's always something at the focus of your mind, okay? So stress, that's one aspect of stress that is good. And remember, this is only in small doses, because as soon as your body notifies you of that which needs to be dealt with, it is your prerogative and your duty as the owner of that body to relieve the stress. That is to eat, to sleep, or to exercise even. Now, failure to do so now would then move from a good kind of stress to a bad kind of stress. But before we get there, I want to talk about another reason why stress is good for you. Now, as I've said, stress is a way of your body communicating your needs internally, but also stress is an inbuilt mechanism for the body to survive. Now, take, for example, you're in an environment that is dangerous, or you experience something that is dangerous to you or a threat to you, something that wants to harm you or someone that wants to harm you. Now, don't go too out of the box. Think about like an insect that you don't like, or when someone startles you all at once, there is usually a reaction that you'll have. And that reaction can be in the form of jumping, screaming, freezing, running away, fighting back. So these are responses that the body gives to deal with that stressful situation. And that stressful situation may be a threat to your life. So stress is important because it teaches your body how to react, or it triggers the reaction in a way that will keep you safe. Now, what we call is what we call that response to danger, that automatic response to danger, is the fight or flight response. Fight or flight response. When you experience something that is dangerous, your body has options on how to respond. Okay? Now, you have the fight response, which is either to fight the perpetrator or the danger, or the perceived danger. The other response is flight, and flight means to escape, to run away. Other responses include freeze. Freeze is where you're startled and then you just remain frozen in place. You remain frozen in place, unable to do anything, waiting for the perceived danger to pass. Okay, and the last response is the fawn response. The fawn response is where sasa unajitetea. You do your best to this perceived threat, and you try to make your best case so that you can survive. Okay, we can also call this like a form of bargaining. Now, the amount of or the type of response that you give will be based on your analysis of the type of threat that it is. If you feel like it is something that you can fight and get away with, then, and you're trained to fight, you've trained your body to fight, then your response will be fighting. But if you feel that you have no fighting experience, or basically your perceived threat is bigger than you can take on, then your response could be freeze or fawn, or it could be to run away. Now, all of those are natural reactions, and they happen like this. Okay? They happen really quick. Now, while your body is reacting consciously and externally, there are processes within that start from the brain. So when you encounter a threat, the brain releases hormones. Yes, these hormones are adrenaline and cortisol. When they are released from the brain, now the hormones are the brain's way of communicating with your internal organs, okay, such as the heart. So when these hormones are released, they communicate with the heart, and the heart starts pumping faster and faster. Why? So that it can circulate blood to the extremities of your body, your hands and your legs, to prepare you for your response, if it's fight or if it's flight. Okay? Even if it's freeze or fawn, your body is still ensuring that you have that energy to supply oxygen enough, because you know the key to energy is oxygen. Okay? Key to energy is oxygen. Then as some of the processes are being put to the forefront, other processes will go to the background. Okay? So as your heart is pumping faster, some blood vessels will widen so that the blood flow can flow, more blood can go to those extremities. The muscles get tense because you're waiting to attack or to run away, right? So blood goes to those muscles to ensure that you can survive, that you give the best response possible, and your body is backing you up. All right? I hope you're with me. I hope I haven't lost you. I know I got a little technical, but I just wanted to let you know a little bit about what happens. So now you've perceived the danger. The brain has sent the chemicals. Your heart is beating faster, right? Your muscles are tense. Your blood vessels have opened up so that you can get as much blood flow as possible for the best case scenario to avoid this threat, right? We've talked about background processes. These background processes are things like digestion. Now, when you are scared, you're not thinking about eating. In fact, if you've observed yourself, you'll note that when you're fearful, you might lose appetite. And that is because that's not needed for survival at the moment. At the moment, you need to evade that threat, and then we'll get back. So the digestion stays in the background until you're over that threat, right? So this is why stress can be good for the body, because it is the body's way of communicating both internally and letting us consciously know what is happening internally and preparing us for the best possible solution. Okay, now I've talked about the good types of stress and why stress is important for survival. Let's talk about the bad type of stress. Now, the bad type of stress can be a form of acute stress. Acute stress occurs when you experience a large amount of stress over a short period of time. And an example of this would be a traumatic event. It could be war. It could be assault. It could be the loss of a loved one. It could be a natural disaster. It could even be, loss of something very dear to you. Okay? Now, this is a lot of stress all at once. Now, as you can imagine, even if stress is not threatening to your body, as I referred to earlier, right? Stress will trigger a physical response from the body. So even if you're not in direct harm, your body will still respond the same way. So you can imagine, normally the heart beats 72 times per minute. And when your senses are heightened, when your heart is beating because you're in danger, it beats faster than that. So if your heart is working overtime for a period of days, weeks, months, it is going to be harmful to your health. Okay? Another type of bad stress is chronic stress. Chronic stress is stress that occurs for a long period of time and is not relieved. Okay? So when you encounter daily stressors are the things that cause us stress. So they stress us, so they're called stressors. Very apt, I hope you got that. Okay? So when you have daily stressors or things that upset you over a period of time and at the forefront of your mind and you do not relieve them, and you carry them for a period of days, months, weeks, years, it can be very detrimental to your health, because that means that your body is in a state of alert. There's a lot of tension, your muscles are being overworked, your organs are being overworked, your brain is also being overworked because it is always sensing danger even when danger isn't there. You're on survival mode. Okay? All right. So let's talk about signs of stress. Now, signs of stress can be 1, difficulty concentrating. When you have several things at the forefront of your mind, it is very difficult to gauge where one begins and where one ends. And how often one comes before the other. It's simply a mess, and that's why it's difficult to concentrate, to focus on one thing, because there are several things pining for your attention. Okay? Another thing would be difficulty remembering. Now, as I've said, there are several things bidding for your attention. And so trying to remember things that happened even 10 seconds ago or 11 seconds ago might be a bit problematic. Or you might have difficulty remembering things that happened 2 days ago or even weeks ago, simply because your focus and your point of attention is occupied fully. Okay? All right. Another sign of stress would be several emotions. One being anger. You would have a short fuse. Now remember, you're tense. You're in a constant state of tension, right? You're irritable all the time because you don't know, your body is watching for the next sign of danger. You're fearful because you're in survival mode as well. That's what your body is working on. And another physical sign would be headaches. Now remember, your brain is working in the background, keeping your body on alert for survival mode, but it is also juggling all of these thoughts and the tension in your muscles, and so there's a lot going on. There's a lot of traffic in your brain. So you will have some headaches. Okay? Another thing is you'll have sweaty palms or clammy palms. Clammy palms is when there's a form of perspiration or wetness, beady. Not quite dripping, but there's a perspiration on you. And that's because you're generating energy all the time. You're nervous. You're living in a state of anxiety. Okay? All right, another sign would be an upset stomach. Okay? Now, remember what I said about the digestion being in the background when you're in survival mode. Now, you'll notice when you're fully stressed, it fluctuates. It fluctuates. Where if you're stressed, you're either eating food as a form of stress relief. Okay? If you like eating food, then eating food will make you feel better. However, majority of the times if you're in a stressful situation, you lose your appetite. So you will have digestive problems like irritable bowel syndrome. Okay? Loss of appetite. And when you lose appetite, you lose weight. And when you eat a lot to deal with the stress, you gain weight. So you can have weight fluctuations every now and then, depending on how you cope with the stress that you're feeling. Okay? All right. Another thing would be sleep disturbances. Now remember, stress is at the forefront of your mind. And why sleep is so important is that it gives the body an opportunity to rest, rejuvenate, and heal. So if you have a lot of traffic in your mind and you go to bed, the traffic will manifest in your dreams very visibly and affect the sleep quality that you have. And when you have poor sleep quality, that means you'll wake up feeling very tired. You'll wake up feeling very tired, you'll be very irritable. And usually we're supposed to have a sleep cycle where they're supposed to cover at least 6 to 8 hours, give or take. That's when the good sleep comes in. And there are certain points during the night where you're supposed to have like the good sleep. We call it like the REM sleep. Now, if you fail to experience that, then your sleep quality is affected. And when your sleep quality is affected, your body is affected. It hasn't gotten enough time to rest and rejuvenate and do all of those things and even heal. And when you wake up, the things that were present in your sleep are still present in your mind, except now you're not recharged, you're not rejuvenated at the end of the day. So you have sleep disturbances. Okay? All right, so we've talked about like the signs and symptoms of stress. Of course, this manifests differently in different people, so to speak. Okay? So, let's talk about management. How do you manage stress? Now, there are two ways of managing stress. You can either manage the situation, remove yourself out of the situation, or remove the situation away from you, or change your response to whatever is stressing you. Okay? And I'll get back to that in a bit, but I want you guys to understand like what are the chronic or what are the effects of long-term chronic stress. Long-term chronic stress can lead to issues like high blood pressure, heart failure or heart problems. Remember we talked about how the heart is working and overworking because it is constantly thinking, it is on survival mode. So it's working hard. Imagine working that hard all the time because the heart doesn't stop until you rest in peace. So it's working and working and working. At some point, something has to give way. Either you rest or your heart rests. Okay? And remember, the blood vessels are also working hard because they have to widen and they have to contract. They have to widen and contract. They're working just as hard as your heart is. Okay? And that's one of the reasons high blood pressure is an issue. One of the reasons why heart failure is an issue or heart conditions is an issue. Another thing can be obesity. Now we've talked about eating habits. When you're trying to deal with stress, one coping mechanism can be eating food. And sometimes that's just a short-term method of dealing with stress because it offers only a short-term relief. But when you're eating and eating and eating, it can lead to obesity. Okay? Another thing can be mental health disorders. You'll find that sometimes over a long period of time, stress affects how you deal with things. It can cause you to develop anxiety, which is your response your internal response to the things that are stressing you. So you start to feel anxious, you're fearful, you can't do things, and it affects your quality of life, because if you're fearful of doing something, the chances of you doing it are nil. There's the hesitation, so you live in constant fear of trying new things because of the stressors. I hope we're together so far. All right. Other signs of long-term causes of chronic stress can be chronic pain. Now remember, your muscles are in a constant state of tension because they're on survival mode. So you start to have aches and pains in different types of your body, because the body is not built to be on survival mode all the time. It needs rest. Those muscles need rest. And there are organs that should be working normally at the forefront, but instead they're working at the background. So that could end up causing issues. Okay? When you're stressed, you're unable to eat properly, because this is now the other side of eating excess. So if you're unable to eat properly, then what happens? You start to lose weight. Your muscles start to weaken. And when you don't feed your body, you also don't feed your mind. So your energy levels are so down. You become moody and irritable. So you might develop a mood disorder. Okay? Now, stress also affects your relationships. How you deal with stress or how you don't deal with stress is very indicative of the quality of relationships that you'll have, because no one wants to be around someone who is stressed and irritable and angry all the time. So it is up to you to take up onus of who you are and start regulating. Find out how you deal with stress, because there are so many stressful things out there. There is school, there is the government, there is education, there is finance, there is our peers, our relationships, our goals and our dreams, our environment. All of these can be stressors, and it is up to us to find out what is the limit. How much stress is too much stress, and how much can I cope with it? How have you been dealing with stress? Find out. And how effective have those methods been? Are you still carrying forward the things that stressed you out from 2 years ago? Those are things I feel like you should ask yourself first and foremost. And then second, look into other ways of managing. How have other people who've experienced those stressors dealt with them? And if you tune into our next videos where we're talking about management of stress and stressors, you can find out if the method you're using is among the methods I will be listing. And if you don't know how to deal with stress, whoever you are, however you are, now is an opportunity for you to learn. We'll be doing some in-house stress management activities and techniques. So stay tuned on our next episode. Thank you so much for joining me on this episode. My name is Zanel Nguriathi, and I am a counseling psychologist with Nafsi Wellness, as well as a wellness coach. And my hope after this episode is you can take time to find out how you have been dealing with stress so far, and how effective has it been. Until the next time.